Thousands of women travel abroad every year looking for sun, sea and romance.
I thought he was one of the most beautiful men I'd ever seen in my life. Charismatic, he was charming.
I was attracted to his humour and his friendliness, but I was still very cautious that it's just a holiday romance.
Some of the men they meet spark instant attraction.
He was absolutely devastatingly handsome, I must admit.
But sometimes holiday relationships don't last.
I felt neglected, I felt suspicious that he's cheating.
And the man of your dreams can become your worst nightmare.
I got an email from this woman telling me that they were married.
These women have been left broken-hearted by accusations of bigamy.
He had married a new wife. I could not believe it.
And have to fight for justice against the man they thought they knew.
He needs to be in prison.
In southeast England, music promoter Kim is watching her wedding video with friend Nicola.
This is what they call the marriage celebration in Senegal.
She married 44-year-old Lai So during a holiday in Senegal in 2007 when she was 50.
I didn't get a cake, I got a goat that was sacrificed for me.
When Kim was introduced to musician Lai in the UK earlier that year, her attraction to him was instant.
I thought he was one of the most beautiful men I'd ever seen in my life. Charismatic, he was charming. He said that he was a widower with 3 children. And so I shared with him very early on that I too had lost 2 children. I was carrying twins, I lost them.
After sharing their most intimate secrets, Kim began to dream of a new life with Lai and his children.
We talked about the children all the time. I began to have dreams of us all being together as a happy family.
Lai was soon pressing Kim for a permanent commitment.
Marriage was talked about quite early in the relationship. He said to me almost every day how much he loved me.
So, looking back, you think this was genuine at the time, or...?
I thought it was 100% genuine. And even now, looking at the video, I can't see it.
Years after her wedding, Kim says she was told Lai may have been hiding a huge secret.
Family members later on were to tell me that he was already married. And after all, surely I knew he was already married.
Kim's nightmare at the hands of a man she now suspects of bigamy was just beginning. Personal assistant Dee was on holiday in Sousse, Tunisia, in the year 2000, recovering from the breakdown of her previous marriage.
I was really distraught. And my cousin Cynthia said, let's go on holiday to Tunisia just to have a break.
While relaxing in the port, she met a dashing student called Ahmed.
I've actually got 2 photos here of when Ahmed and I first met. He was absolutely devastatingly handsome, I must admit. He was very charming, and he was tall as well. When you get a compliment or someone takes an interest in you when you're in this vulnerable place, you don't sort of think they're trying to scam you.
Dee stayed in contact with Ahmed after returning to her home in Bedfordshire, and their affection for one another grew into a relationship.
I thought, you know, we suited each other. He did make me laugh. I found him quite funny at times, and he liked my cooking.
After several holidays to visit Ahmed in Sousse, Dee married him in a Tunisian civil ceremony in 2003.
This is us, the night of the party. The party was kept on the roof of a house. It's me and him. We look like sort of Beckham and Posh there. I don't laugh, joke. I thought these were happy days, happy times.
After their marriage, Ahmed moved to the UK and worked as a hospital porter. Dee decided to invest in a property in Tunisia.
We'd built a really, really nice house. And he'd actually taken a lot of stuff from the house in England to put in that house.
In July 2009, Ahmed was loading up the car to furnish their Tunisian home and also to visit his sick father.
This is the lay-by where Ahmed pulled into on the morning when he left to go to Tunisia. The car was laden and he couldn't go up the hill again. So he phoned me at home and asked me to bring his wedding ring. I came down here with the wedding ring to give to Ahmed, not knowing that Ahmed was going to use the ring for his marriage 11 days later to a Tunisian woman.
Ahmed's father died, so Ahmed extended his stay in Tunisia. But in August, Dee received a devastating email from his cousin.
I had an email to ask me if I've divorced Ahmed. I said, no, what are you talking about? We're still living together.
The email was enough for Dee to do further research via a friend in Tunisia. Her worst fears were soon confirmed.
I found out that he had married a new wife. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it.
But bigger battles with Ahmed lay ahead for Dee. In Bournemouth, care worker Julie is reminiscing with her friend Ben about her 2007 holiday to the Gambia, West Africa.
Why did you start to like Lamin?
He was a gentleman, wasn't he? He carried all my bags, my water.
During her holiday, Julie, who was 45 at the time, met 30-year-old Lamin.
He was very physically attractive, athletic, I thought very handsome. I was attracted to his humour and his friendliness, but I was still very cautious that it's just a holiday romance.
After 3 failed marriages, Julie admits she was susceptible to Lamin's charm.
I was quite vulnerable, I was getting old. He made me feel like I was unique.
Julie returned to Bournemouth, but Lamin remained in contact.
I thought, maybe this is the man for me for the rest of my life. And I thought, I can improve his life and his situation.
12 months later, in November 2008, Julie booked another holiday to marry Lamin in a Gambian registry office. It wasn't the wedding Julie had hoped for.
Before the wedding, the woman said, "Have you got a dress?" I said, "Yes, I have." "Why?" She opened a filing cabinet and she said, "I got a dress here, rent a dress, one size fits all." I said, "You're kidding me." And there's people in a queue waiting to get married after you.
Julie and Lamin tied the knot, but their romance didn't last long.
We spent the whole of our honeymoon filling visa forms in. The whole honeymoon was destroyed. That little nagging thing in my head that was saying, are you doing the right thing or not? I wish I'd listened to it now.
Lamin came to the UK in 2008 and told Julie he'd find work as a builder. But his efforts at assembling Julie's shed cast some doubt on his construction qualifications.
He said he'd build it, but it's not right. It's upside down, partly. There's gaps here, that's hanging off. The roof is just rotting. The window's not right and hanging off, and all the floor's not done. What a mess. Just a bit like our relationship was. It's a memento of what I married and what I've been left with.
As they tried to build a life together in the UK, it wasn't just Lamin's DIY skills that left Julie disappointed.
He's going out with his friends, drinking. I felt neglected, I felt suspicious that he's cheating.
You going to mug me?
Am I going to mug you?
Is that gorgeous or what, eh?
And I believe I can run a decent marathon.
Thank you very much.
Download Veely now.
The growing crime known as romance fraud is a global concern. In Goliad, Texas, 66-year-old Linda's story began in 2011 when Larry, her husband of 21 years, passed away.
He was my soulmate. We thought we'd just grow old and die together. But it didn't happen that way. He wanted me to move on with my life, and he said, I want you to meet a really Christian, good man and remarry.
To help her get over her loss, Linda's daughters suggested internet dating. By July 2012, she found herself in an online relationship with a 56-year-old man called Steve Charway. He ticked all the right boxes for a vulnerable widow.
He was gentle, he was kind and caring, and he tells me, far in distance, but near in heart, you'll always be my angel to my heart. He made me feel a little young again.
I think she was very naive to the internet. Her and her husband had been together for so long. When she lost him, she lost a lot.
Steve told Linda that he worked in investments and was often based in Ghana, West Africa.
He could explain everything away. He always was able to make you feel like it was okay, and he just had a way. He just knew how to do it.
It wasn't long before Steve offered a long-term commitment to end Linda's loneliness.
He had asked me to be his wife, and we were going to be married. I decided I was going to go to Ghana. We would be married there, and then we would come back here.
By this stage of the relationship, Linda had also been providing Steve with money and gifts, sometimes at his request, occasionally at her discretion.
This is the money that I actually sent to Steve, and these were for hotel bills, food, medicines, different things that he would say that he needed.
As her trip to Ghana for her wedding approached in July 2013, Linda was thrilled at the opportunity to restart her life.
I just couldn't wait. We were talking about when we got to the airport, I was just going to wrap my arms around him and wrap my legs around him and kiss him and kiss him and kiss him.
But on arrival at the Ghanaian airport, Linda was greeted by an unfamiliar face calling her name.
Someone said, Linda. And I looked around and it was a young black man in a suit and tie, dressed very nicely. And I walked over to him and I said, who are you? And he said, I'm pastor. Well, Steve had talked about pastor. In fact, the pastor was going to marry us. He said, Steve sent me to pick you up. He's at the church working.
Linda travelled to the hotel with the pastor, where she was expecting to meet Steve. But as she waited, she learnt the shocking truth.
I was starting to be very upset, and I said, he's not coming, is he? And he kind of dropped his head and he said, Linda, do you love Steve? And I said, yes, I must, or I wouldn't have come halfway around the world. He handed me a little church bulletin, and it said, Pastor Steve Charway. And then he said, I'm Steve. I fell apart, totally fell apart. I mean, he said, I'm still the same man inside, even though my skin is black. And he said, everything I've told you for the last year has been a lie. But now I'm going to tell you the truth. I truly love you, and I want us to be married.
The picture Linda was originally sent was of an unknown man. We've been unable to identify or trace him, but there is no suggestion he was in any way aware that his photograph was being used by Steve. This photograph also appears on a lot of other websites. The way Steve used his charm to win Linda around is typical of the men we are featuring in this programme. Each victim has a story to tell on just how charismatic their ex-partners could be.
They must go to some sort of charm school to learn all the things that would make somebody who has a very low self-esteem feel really, really good about themselves.
He was compassionate and kind and gentle, and he started telling me how much he loved me, and he would tell me how much God loved me, and he would say, you're in my prayers.
When I met Lamin, he promised me that he'd be there till the end of my days. I'll look after you, he said.
He really made me feel age wasn't a factor, and that he was a serious man, and that what he was looking for was a life partner with somebody who could be the mother to his children.
Kim believed she was living a happy and monogamous life with Lai So for 5 years, until in January 2013, when things began to unravel. Musician Lai, then 49, was in Senegal making preparations for his children to move to the UK, into a house Kim had bought for them all to live in.
Suddenly I get this phone call. I've lost my credit cards. I can't pay the school fees. I need some money. So I sent over all the money that I had at that time on me.
Around this time, Kim noticed Lai had removed his property from her house.
He had taken all of his smart suits, winter clothes, etc. And suddenly I realised he had gone.
Kim used social media to notify her friends and contacts of Lai's unexpected departure.
This is when all hell broke loose. Suddenly I had loads of women contacting me.
Kim was inundated with women making claims about Lai. She says she was sent photos of one of the women she was being told Lai was married to.
Suddenly I was being sent pictures of his wife in the house, pictures of the children cuddled up on the wife.
Kim was receiving repeated allegations about her husband.
I still to this day don't know how many children he's got. I'd learnt about 5 wives. I could not move. I was rigid in trauma.
As the allegations came thick and fast, Kim didn't know what to believe. She struggled to cope, and the toll on her led to a near-fatal accident.
I actually drank a bottle of vodka, staggered up the stairs, and I ended up falling down there. And I still to this day don't know how I didn't kill myself. And actually, I didn't even care whether I lived or died at that point.
Care worker Julie married Lamin Sidibe after a whirlwind romance that began on holiday in the Gambia in 2007, when she was 45. When 31-year-old Lamin had his visa confirmed 18 months later, he moved to the UK and eventually found work at a Bournemouth fish and chip shop. But Julie says the money he earned wasn't spent on going out with her.
He'd be coming in about 2, 3 in the morning. I'd be worried. And he'd say, stop phoning me. I said, but I'm worried, you're my husband. You know, and I have a right to know where you are.
2 months after being given official permission to stay in the UK in March 2010, Lamin left the marital home.
He came home with a bunch of flowers and said, I'm leaving. I said, pack your bags now.
Weeks later, Julie says she was contacted by another Englishwoman who made a sensational claim about Lamin.
My marriage might not have been legal. She told me that they were married. She said, I tried to get him a visa so many times, it was refused. So he hit the jackpot with me because I had a house, a job, I could afford to keep him.
We have tried to contact the woman who claimed to be married to Lamin, but she did not respond to our request. Julie remains unsure if this allegation made in the phone call was true. But her nightmare with Lamin is not over. He still lives in Bournemouth.
I hate it when I bump into him and I see that he's just getting on with life.
Julie now wonders about the real reason Lamin entered a relationship with her.
The only thing he came for was a visa, passport, have a better life than he had there. It was his escape. But he's got what he wanted, but it wasn't me.
Dee met her ex-husband Ahmed on holiday in Sousse, Tunisia. In 2009, she was left devastated when she discovered that 34-year-old Ahmed had divorced her and remarried without her knowledge.
I phoned him and I said, Ahmed, I've been hearing rumours that you've divorced me behind my back and you've remarried. And he said, yes, me and my new wife were very happy. Better do not give me troubles because it is not good for you or for me.
Before he left, Ahmed had asked Dee to lend him £36,000 to buy a car while he was over in Tunisia.
What he had told me was that he was buying like a Jeep in Egypt, and he can bring it back to Tunisia, sell it for double the amount, and then he'd be able to give me back the money.
With her bank account emptied and her husband thousands of miles away, Dee was left in a state of shock.
I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. My heart was sort of just racing. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I didn't crumble. I'm still strong and will continue to be until I get satisfaction. That's all I can say.
Dee decided she wasn't going to be beaten by Ahmed and began to fight back. Via a Tunisian lawyer, she found evidence that Ahmed had falsified her divorce papers.
He'd sent the divorce papers to a false address in Wembley, and the Tunisian court would not accept this. So he had to concoct a story to say I was living in Tunisia, and he served the divorce papers there.
Ahmed was able to convince a Tunisian solicitor to sign off on his illegal divorce papers. Dee was able to track the solicitor down in September 2010. They admitted to signing the divorce papers.
This confession was a turning point for me to be able to get Ahmed to trial. She said she spoke to a lady with an English-sounding voice in London. So obviously Ahmed had got someone to impersonate me.
Dee was able to prove in Tunisian court that Ahmed had divorced her illegally and that he'd taken thousands of pounds from her by deception. After Ahmed failed in his appeal to the court, they issued a stern punishment.
In April 2014, the Tunisian court, in their wisdom, realised that the original suspended 3-year sentence was too lenient. So they've converted it to a prison sentence for 3 years.
By the time Ahmed's appeal had been overturned, he'd already returned to the UK. Dee now believes he's evading Tunisian jail by living in Cambridge.
If he touches down in Tunisia, they will arrest him. But what will the British police do here? Because basically I want the man arrested for the crimes he's committed.
In 2013, music promoter Kim was preparing her home in the UK for her Senegalese partner Lai and his children.
Yes, these were the beds for the first 2 children to use. Pretty sad.
But after she received social media messages suggesting Lai may have had multiple relationships and even marriages, she hit her lowest ebb.
My children had gone, my husband had gone. I lost everything so quickly.
Having drunk a bottle of vodka and fallen down the stairs, Kim was rescued after neighbours alerted the emergency services.
The only thing I could say to the paramedics was no, 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 no. It was all too much to take on board. How come I haven't seen what was going on?
But the nightmare at the hands of a man she fears may be a bigamist is far from over for Kim. Kim now suspects that the end game all along was for Lai to get her rental property.
He sued me for divorce on the grounds of my unreasonable behaviour and put charges on my property so that I wasn't able to sell the property. He's trying to evict the tenants. He's trying to take my money through the divorce procedure. He thinks that he can take my assets away from me.
Kim is fighting to keep her property out of the hands of her love rat husband Lai. Kim believes if she can find evidence he committed bigamy, then Lai won't be able to make claims on her house. Kim has been sent a video by a former associate of Lai's, which we are unable to show for legal reasons.
I have a lovely wife. She's beautiful. And she loves me 1,000%. I've heard those words so many times.
Tonight, Kim is watching the video, which was shot in 2003 for the first time.
Only my wife understands me. How many times have I heard that?
It shows Lai repeatedly referring to another woman as his wife 4 years before he was married to Kim.
Now I'm seeing the real person. Charming, good-looking, smooth-talking. I've heard all those words before. They've been said to me.
Seeing the video has stirred up some strong emotions for Kim, who hopes it is evidence that helps prove Lai's bigamy.
What a total, utter shit. I am so angry. I am so... I have no words. I am so angry.
He needs to be in prison.
I hope it's the smoking gun that we need. This will be handed to the police. We have it quite clearly said on camera, my wife, my wife.
American Linda was on holiday in Ghana in July 2013 to meet the man of her dreams, 47-year-old Steve Charway. But it turned out the man 66-year-old Linda had been sending thousands of dollars to wasn't the middle-aged white man she'd seen online, but a young black man.
I looked in his eyes and he said, I'm the same person. My skin color is black, but I'm the same person inside.
The shock left Linda reeling.
It was horrible. I was blown completely apart. My heart was broken. It hurt really bad. So I told him, I said, Steve, I can't marry you right now. I said, I need to get a ticket and go home.
Linda booked on the next available flight home. But in the time waiting for her flight, Steve was able to show that the man she'd fallen in love with online was every bit as charming in the flesh.
I had to wait 4 days. Well, during that time, he was very, very sweet and gentle and kind and good, and I was falling more in love with him, actually, and I began to regret the fact that I had changed my ticket to come home.
Once she'd returned home, Linda couldn't stop thinking about Steve.
I knew that I still cared for him, I still loved him, and I guess I was really mixed up. He was begging me, and he was saying, why won't you marry me? Why won't you come back?
Linda relented and booked another holiday to Ghana in October 2013. But days before she was due to fly, she made a shocking discovery.
On his Facebook, this woman had written a message to him telling him, you already know how much I love you, and soon the whole world will know. And that's how I found out that there was another woman.
Linda's daughter found evidence that Steve was in regular contact with the other woman.
My daughter discovered this woman had, on her Facebook, had all these pictures of him and everything, and confessing all her love for him and all.
Linda cancelled her holiday to Ghana. She believes Steve has since married the other woman and is now living in the UK.
I never heard from him again, and then I got an email from this woman telling me that they were married. So I was crushed. I mean, I was really crushed.
After investing thousands of dollars in the relationship, Linda felt great shame that she'd been duped. She was offered no support from some of her neighbours in Texas.
Some of my neighbours were not very happy with the fact that I had gone the first time, and they were making some negative comments to me, but it made me feel like that I couldn't share my experience, and I was suffering. I felt like I'd done something horribly wrong. I felt like I had let my husband down, Larry. I couldn't face people.
The suffering and doubt that holiday love rats leave behind is something all of our women have struggled with.
Those feelings have come on. How did I fall for this? I've been taken for an idiot. But it can happen to anybody.
I lost all faith in myself. I lost faith in my judgments. I even thought about ending it all. This would be a simple way of getting out of this situation.
It would take a very special man for me to trust again. But it would be a man that would understand where I'm coming from, that I've been hurt emotionally, financially, in every way.
I doubt I'll ever have a relationship because of this, because As soon as I meet somebody, I start to question, is it real? I have absolutely no trust of anybody anymore.
Julie's 33-year-old ex-husband Lamin left her just a few months after his UK visa arrived in 2010. But although he left Julie, Lamin never left Bournemouth, and now even trips to the local shop are emotionally demanding for Julie.
Every time I see dreadlocks, I double take just in case it's him. I saw Lamin at the petrol station the other day, did not acknowledge me, drove off. I saw him at Bournemouth Hospital many times when he just totally blanked me. If I had the chance to speak to him, I would say, you are one horrible, nasty, cold-hearted user. Makes me feel really angry.
Wherever she goes, Julie is wary Lamin could be nearby, and every street is paved with memories.
Toby Carvery, we used to like going there. That's where the upside-down shed came from. It's horrible living in the same town as him, because you never know where you're going to go, where you're going to bump into him. I went past there one day, and I saw him outside there chatting up a girl, a blonde. He's just, living the dream.
As she struggles to put the relationship behind her, care worker Julie is being treated for depression.
When it comes to my love life, I'm rubbish. When people tell me, don't do this, don't do that, Julie, you're making a mistake, I'm just like, oh, shut up, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm a bit stubborn. And I thought, with Lamin, I'll prove everybody wrong and it's going to work. But I regret it big time now. I feel stupid. I want some kind of closure, I guess.
After her ex-husband Ahmed was sentenced to 3 years imprisonment in Tunisia, Dee thought he'd be deported. But unless the British police arrest Ahmed following an extradition request from Tunisia, he will remain living in the UK and evading Tunisian jail. Dee's sense of injustice has led her to set up a campaign and support group.
Setting up immigration marriage fraud has given me a new focus and a new channel, not only to help people, but to work off my stress. And I find you get satisfaction in people feeding back to you and say, thank you, I didn't know that there was such an organisation like yours.
Dee is also campaigning for the government to help people involved in immigration marriage fraud.
Many of these fraudsters are just laughing at the British people because our loopholes are there. They know what they call the long game, and they will wait. And as soon as they get their visas, some of them within even 1 day of getting their visas, will walk away from the marriage.
Dee believes she is providing a vital service.
These people are just devastated, really, as we all have been. And the good thing is that they're able to identify with you because you've been through a similar process.
We have sent all Dee's allegations to Ahmed, but he has not responded. As Dee seeks changes in the UK law, American Linda Austin is hoping United States Justice can catch up with Steve Charway. Today, she's visiting Sergeant Poppy in the Goliad Sheriff's Office to find out if anything can be done to recover her money.
I've got it here on my desk. At this point, the case has been presented to the District Attorney's Office. Typically when we recommend an indictment, they will do that. Once the indictment occurs, a warrant will be issued. Then the difficult part begins, yes. Because he is in another country. We're actually not sure which country. Is he in Ghana? Is he in the UK? Is he elsewhere? But at least we're at the point now where criminal charges are being brought in the United States. Okay. And from there, it's going to be a bit of a search, but we're hopeful.
What do you think the chances are of him being caught? And if so, what would the chances be of me getting my money back?
The apprehension is going to be the more difficult part. As far as getting your money back, that would be part of the sentencing process. One of the options that the judge has is to require that person to make restitution for the amount that you've lost.
Complaints like this are an increasing problem for Sergeant Poppy and his team.
Even in a small community like Goliad, this is emerging as a greater and greater problem all the time. I probably receive 2 or 3 incidents like this per week.
With Sergeant Poppy on the case, Linda is feeling confident that United States justice will ultimately catch up with Steve.
Steve wanted to come to the U.S., so I guess now he's going to get to, but he may not like his hotel. It really is bad to have this going on and to have the feeling of helplessness that nobody cares. So I'm very happily surprised that this is all fixing to come about.
Julie has struggled emotionally since ex-husband Lamin left her weeks after his UK visa was confirmed. She is visiting leading psychologist Emma Kenny to try to come to terms with the anger and sadness Lamin has left behind.
How are your feelings now? The way he treated you?
I hate him. I hate him with a vengeance.
In some way, he's taught you a valuable lesson, which is that you're not going to be used anymore.
Yeah, he's taught me that. But I wouldn't have liked to learn it that way.
And what is it for you that makes you think that he selected you?
I'm a very kind kind of person. It's like I've got I listen or like mug written on my head.
Oh, I care.
I care, yeah. But when it gets thrown back in your face, that's a hard one to deal with. I won't let anyone move in on me again. No way.
I'm wondering whether it's more about learning to trust yourself, your choices and your understanding and gut instinct, as opposed to feeling like you can't have another relationship or move somebody into your world, which essentially means that Lamin's won. What has he taught you? Not to rush into anything. You know, listening to that gut nagging feeling in your head, those doubts, just think a bit more about what the consequences can be. Sure.
After.
Emma's insight has struck a chord with Julie, who thinks her job had a big impact on her decision to enter a relationship with Lamin.
For many years now, I've been in support work, supporting people with drug and alcohol issues, mental health issues, and I find it rewarding to help people. Maybe it was a bit of a project that I could help this man out of poverty and help improve his life.
We have put all Julie's allegations to Lamin, but his reply was unsuitable for broadcast. Kim thinks she may be married to a bigamist who is attempting to claim her property via the divorce courts. As yet unable to prove social media claims of bigamy, Kim has travelled to Huddersfield to seek advice from family solicitor Jonathan James.
I'm hoping that he's going to be able to give his expert eye as to which way we should be attacking this.
If Kim can prove musician Lai married her bigamously, she will not have to go through a complicated divorce battle.
We try to keep it as simple as we possibly can. So what I'm looking for in any particular case of this nature is, can I show on the documents there was a valid previous marriage? If you can show that, even out of a set of 4 other potential marriages, you stick with that one. Because that one can be the killer punch that ends the case.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're dragged into the whole divorce finance swamp. And believe me, it's a swamp.
I know.
It's about dividing up what there is. It's about money.
At the moment, it's all a bit of a mess, and people in our situation are stuck.
Yes. It's complicated. It's drawn out. And because a lot of it is in your hands as a private individual, the risk is that it gets really very expensive.
Yes.
Kim needs to find more hard evidence of the claims of bigamy. Until then, her case is set to remain ongoing.
Kim has some hard decisions to take. Nobody enjoys having a courtroom fight, and she's going to have to weigh up the cost of doing that and whether she grits her teeth, swallows her pride, and decides to keep as much money as she can and pay him something to get rid. And that really will go against the grain.
Kim is willing to be patient in her battle with lie.
It's just a waiting game at the moment to see what paper evidence that we can get together. But I won't stop until we've actually got some resolution.
We have contacted Lai, but he has not responded to Kim's allegations. In Texas, Linda has become a recluse due to the embarrassment of being scammed by Ghanaian Steve Charway after her husband Larry passed away. She is meeting close friend Dolores at her local church to tell her for the first time the extent of the scam she was involved in.
As you know, I went to Ghana and I was scammed. You know that much. I talked to this man for over a year and I loved him, and then he took off with another woman.
I can't believe it. I just can't believe it.
And that's why I've been out of sight from everybody. I was ashamed. And it hurt.
So everything he told you was a lie?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
I was lonely. I just needed somebody to love me.
I see how something like this could happen very easily. Even though you and I both knew our husbands were not going to be with us much longer, you think you're prepared, but the rug just comes out from under you. I'm very happy that I know the truth. And if you need someone to talk to...
I know. You're a good friend.
And so are you.
It's been difficult for Linda to tell her story, but it's the first step to moving on with her life. Steve Charway admits to having an affair with Linda, but says there was a second man who disappeared just before Linda's arrival in Ghana. Steve says he gave $800 of Linda's money to his church. As they all attempt to rebuild their lives, each woman has come to their own conclusion about the overseas charmer they fell for.
I don't believe my husband ever loved me for a moment. He loved what I could provide for him. I was a means to an end. I was an opportunity. I was a target.
I don't cry about lambing anymore. I feel I'm not going to let that happen to me ever again.
What has happened to me has made me very strong, because many women I know in this position, they just want to sort of curl up and sort of just forget things, but no, not me.
They don't love you, they don't care about you. All they care about is getting that money. I just wish my husband was back. If he was here, none of this would have ever happened.
Thousands of women go on holiday every year looking for sun, sea, and sometimes romance. A growing number even marry a man they've met abroad.
As soon as I saw him, I just fell in love with him.
It just was a whirlwind, and I was just so smitten with him.
And then spend months getting them a visa.
It took me about 14 months to get him into the country.
They spend a fortune on their new partners.
I was pretty horrified when he arrived with one suitcase. I thought, wow, he's expecting me to just buy him a whole wardrobe of clothes.
But then discover they may not be the only woman in their new man's life.
This is the actual email that he was sending out to hundreds of women.
And shortly after their new husbands' visas arrived, each of the 4 women in this documentary were left wondering if they were the victims of a scam.
He received his British passport on the 5th of December. By the 31st of December, he was booking tickets for Egypt Air to get out of there.
Drum teacher Diane from Staffordshire has a passion for African music.
Drumming is very important to me because when I'm drumming, I don't think about anything else at all.
In 2009, her love of drumming took her on holiday to the Gambia in West Africa.
I'd been playing and learning West African percussion for several years, and a group of us went to Gambia to spend 2 weeks there to study with authentic djembe folas, which is drum masters from Guinea. I'd never seen drums played the way they played them, and the sound was just amazing. So to be in Africa and to see and hear that and experience that was just beautiful.
Then, aged 53, Diane had been single for 5 months, but wasn't interested in romance.
Love and relationships was the last thing on my mind. I was focusing totally on the music, experiencing a new and exciting culture, learning about that.
But everything changed when Diane crossed paths with drum master Mo Bear.
We'd had a beach party one night, all the students and the musicians, and he approached me from behind and he touched the small of my back. I didn't know who it was, but I remember turning around and being surprised to see that it was him, because it was strangely emotional. The attraction was the music, I think. Meeting somebody so talented in such a different way. When anybody's abroad, I think you sort of enter a different type of personality, if you like. It's different, isn't it? I was on my own, I had no family, I had no ties with me. So I felt very independent and very free, yeah.
After that first trip, Diane and Mo Bear embarked on a long-distance love affair.
If I thought practically this is likely not to work, I could have said no. But love is like an addiction. I needed to be with him, I wanted to be with him, and when I wasn't with him, it was difficult, and I missed him incredibly. So that to me is what love is. I needed to be with him.
Diane was hooked, but the journey she was beginning was to prove both expensive and heartbreaking. In Norfolk, 49-year-old Michelle also thought she'd found an ideal man while she was abroad.
That's a nice one of him, actually.
It was 2005. Michelle was 40 and working in the Middle Eastern city of Dubai when she met Egyptian deep-sea diver Waleed.
I went out there to help a friend of mine with a new business he was starting, which was a commercial diving business, and Waleed was a fellow employee.
But whilst Michelle was focusing on her job, 30-year-old Waleed was focusing his charms on her.
Waleed came across as a really charming, sort of really nice guy, you know, with a future, ambitious. He's a charmer. There's no two ways about it.
Michelle and her English husband had divorced 4 years earlier. She fell in love with Egyptian Waleed because he seemed to offer something different.
With our upbringing, we can be a bit cold, but Waleed had something which I hadn't had before, whereas they are more emotional. He would say he loved you. He was a very passionate, I would even say. So that actually does reel you in.
Once Waleed and Michelle became a couple, she imagined they would start a family and have a long life together.
We were going to travel, we were going to have a child, and we were going to have maybe live for 6 months in the UK and 6 months in Egypt. He painted a wonderful picture of the life we were going to have together.
Just like Michelle, Diane was looking forward to a bright future with Mo Bear, who she'd met in 2009 in Gambia, a country near to his native Guinea.
He looked after me beautifully. He was very careful, very protective, very attentive. He had the most beautiful smile. He had mentioned marriage, and I was a little bit alarmed. I wasn't naive. I knew that there was a risk that this wasn't genuine.
Almost 2 years after they met, Diane pushed her doubts to one side, and in November 2010, Diane and Mo Bear got married. But immediately after the wedding, Diane began to question why Mo Bear had been so keen to marry.
We got back to the hotel and I noticed a change almost that quickly. He was celebrating with his friends, really, and he wasn't celebrating marrying the love of his life or the future in that. He was celebrating his achievement. He'd married a European woman. He now had in his possession a wedding certificate that was almost like the Holy Grail to him. He could hardly let go of it, and he'd achieved everything he could possibly achieve at that point in his life.
Diane and Mo Bear had decided they'd live in the UK once they were married. As their wedding was recognised in Britain, Diane could now apply for the visa that allowed Mo Bear to officially make that move.
When I look at the wedding photographs, I was happy, and I honestly thought he was too.
But Diane and Mobert were not destined for a lifelong marriage. In 2007, 2 years after meeting Egyptian Walid, Michelle married him here at Dereham Registry Office.
I did love him. I thought the world of him, yeah, I did. I suppose that was a chance of happiness. I felt that I'd found someone that shared my dreams. I can remember walking in hair. I can remember my family sort of being hair, because that's just the memories, I suppose, coming back to me.
Michelle had brought Walid to the UK on a fiancé visa.
I had to convince immigration that, you know, he was basically going to sort of settle with me and stay with me, etc. The fact that he could work, the fact that I could support him initially as a sponsor.
Walid wasn't allowed to work, and she had to decide whether to marry him within 6 months.
If I wouldn't have married him on the fiancé visa, he would have had to go back to his own country. My preference would have been to wait longer, but I actually felt the immigration system itself was pressuring me to marry him. I did what I did, and there's nothing in this whole world that's going to change my decision. But I would have never dreamed in a million years my life would have taken such a turn by making that decision on that day.
Michelle's decision to get married would change her life forever. Holiday love rats know no boundaries. A growing number of women are being promised eternal love, but are then left broken-hearted. Indiana in America is home to 53-year-old Jane.
I have Latif's emails and immigration papers.
In 2005, mum of two Jane was going through a divorce when she started looking at internet dating sites.
Just was kind of wanting to date, see what kind of people were out there. Really don't think I was looking for anything serious. It was more just someone to go out, have fun, go out to dinner and just enjoy the times.
This all changed when Jane was contacted by Nigerian Latif Balogun.
His messages were very romantic. He did a lot of romantic quotes, was very, very sweet.
Then 43, Jane messaged and spoke to 33-year-old Latif every day. Latif claimed to be living in America.
I noticed things were kind of broken with the English, so I asked him, you know, where are you actually from? Because you just don't sound like, you know, you don't speak the same way that I speak. And he admitted that he was born in Africa and said that he lived in Cleveland on a work visa.
When Jane questioned Latif further, he told her that he had to return to Nigeria to be with his sick father. But Jane later discovered that Latif had always been in Nigeria.
I was fairly new to the internet. I did try to investigate, you know, what type of people came from Nigeria, and I did notice that I'd find a lot of women that would say they couldn't understand why the men from there were so willing to lie to women, and that kind of had my guard up. But I still wanted to believe that, you know, he was being honest with me. And it just, I kind of was a little egotistical about thinking, well, you know, maybe I'm different.
Just over 8 months after first chatting to Latif, Jane travelled to Nigeria on holiday to meet her new man for the first time.
Totally fell in love with him during that time, alone with him. And he basically treated me like a queen, waited on me hand and foot. It just was a whirlwind. And I was just so smitten with him.
It was on that first trip in 2006 that Jane and Latif got married.
The proposal was actually online before I went. And he actually had the wedding pretty much planned for when I got down there, that out of registry. It was very romantic, African drums, the whole thing.
After the wedding, Jane returned to the US alone. Despite now being married, Latif didn't have the right to enter America. Jane began a 2-year fight for the visa that would allow her new husband residence in her homeland. But Jane had no idea what troubles lay ahead. 64-year-old Patricia lives in the Midlands. She suffers from acute osteoarthritis and rarely goes out. In the autumn of 2011, Patricia was feeling lonely and decided to join a dating website.
I was looking for love. I was looking for somebody who I thought I could really love.
29-year-old Monda Mesni from Tunisia got in touch.
When he was messaging me, it was exciting because I thought I'd found the person that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with.
This was Patricia's first time on a dating site, and Monda seemed to offer everything she was looking for.
When he first contacted me, he was all lovey-dovey. He started telling me he loved me when we'd been talking about 3 weeks, and was asking me to go up there for a holiday.
Monda convinced Patricia they should be together, despite being from different countries and him being 33 years younger.
I just thought, well, age is just a number. And he kept drilling that into my head. Age is just a number. As long as you love each other, that's all that matters. It made me feel good because he was younger than me. And I thought, well, you know, I can still pull men at that age, you know what I mean? And it just made me feel good.
Despite Patricia's crippling disabilities, within 6 months, she took a holiday to Tunisia to meet Monda. It was love at first sight.
When I got to the airport in Tunisia, he was there waiting for me. And as soon as I saw him, I just fell in love with him straight away.
Monda seemed to feel the same way.
I'd been there about 5 days, and he said to me, he says, right, let's get married. Let's do it. And I was thinking to myself, I love the guy, you know. So I thought, go for it.
But Patricia's dream of a long and happy life with Monda was about to turn into a nightmare.
When I look at him now, I think to myself, what a fool I've been. I feel as I've been used, abused, and I made a right fool of myself.
In 2009, African drum teacher Diane fell in love with Mobear. After nearly 2 years, they married in Gambia before beginning life as newlyweds in Diane's Staffordshire home. Almost immediately, money was an issue.
I was pretty horrified when he arrived with 1 suitcase. I thought, wow, he's expecting me to just buy him a whole wardrobe of clothes and has no concept of money.
Diane had paid for Mobear's visa application and was supporting him whilst he looked for work as a musician.
It was very difficult financially, and it caused a lot of problems. He hadn't earned enough money to really contribute to our lives in the household, and when he did earn money, he didn't want to give me any of it.
After paying for everything for 3 years, as well as sending gifts and money to Mobear's family in Africa, Diane said she'd spent thousands of pounds, almost all of her savings.
He went to Guinea again in 2013. I couldn't afford it, so I managed to get enough money together for him to go. When he went, everything changed. I had Skype calls from him, and he would say, don't contact me, which was very alien to me. He always kept in touch, and I said, what do you mean, don't contact you? You're my husband, what's happening?
Mobear stayed in Guinea for 3 months. But just a few weeks after his return, Diane found a letter in Mobear's luggage, which seemed to prove he was planning to end their marriage.
It's a description of how to apply for citizenship without having to be in a marriage any longer. He, of course, said, I've never seen that piece of paper before in my life, and refused to acknowledge that he knew what it was and was not prepared to tell me who'd written it. And you can imagine my shock at finding that. Awful.
Because musician Mobert had now been married to Diane and resident in the UK for 3 years, he could apply for British citizenship.
He knew that after 3 years of being in any marriage to a British person, he could get British citizenship, which would entitle him to travel throughout Europe freely without a visa.
After discovering the note, Diane confronted Mobert.
Even with me, as patient as that being, he knew time was running out. So, eventually he decided to hole himself up in this spare bedroom and live in here, basically. I remember during those days, I was sitting downstairs and he came down and sat on the stairs halfway down, and he just sat on the stairs playing with his tablet. And I remember feeling strangely, desperately sorry for him. Yeah. And I said, why are you sitting there? Come down. But he didn't, he went back upstairs then. But it was so sad, and it was almost like a cry for help, really. And I'll never forget that.
The relationship was over.
There was no turning back, he knew that. He knew there was no turning back then. He just thought he'd done everything he needed to do, and he was ready to get his citizenship. And looking forward to it. Probably as excited about that as he was about the marriage.
Mobert left Diane with his insults ringing in her ears.
He said to me, and Susu, your mother is an unrepeatable word. A terrible, terrible thing to say to me. That was the last thing he ever said to me. No.
Michelle married her Egyptian husband Walid in 2007. Like Diane, she also paid for a visa that would let him remain in the UK and supported him as he looked for work as a deep-sea diver.
You know, I remember him standing in the lounge one day and he was like, because he wanted this diving course and that, he was really being quite intimidating because he wanted me to get a credit card and because he wanted me to pay for this diving course. So I ended up doing it, and the only reason I did it was because he said he was going to pay me back and that, but there was always a reason in the end through the whole relationship why he couldn't pay it back.
Oh my God, there's so much of it.
But 4 years into their marriage, and just a month after getting his British passport, Walid bought a plane ticket to Egypt and never came back.
He received his British passport on the 5th of December. By the 31st of December, he was booking tickets for Egypt Air to get out of there, to go leave the UK. So that was just that quick. So as soon as he got what he wanted, he was out.
Three years on, Michelle's wounds are still very raw.
A black jacket which I got in my room, he rarely liked aftershave, and for a while there afterwards when he left, I had it in bed with me because I could smell him.
Michelle divorced Walid in October 2012, but while she's still struggling to move on, he has remarried and had a child. Now, after 2 years of silence, he's suddenly back in touch.
Yesterday I got a message. It's so hard to forget somebody who gave you so much to remember, just like on a little banner. I got a message the day before, what was I doing? And then I had a message saying that his daughter had been rushed into hospital and that she nearly died, but I found it all rather strange because if your daughter was ill, why would you be, WhatsApping your ex-wife who you haven't seen for nearly 3 years in the UK?
But if Walid's messages were surprising, his next request was an even bigger shock.
He's told me that his Egyptian wife has died of cancer, and basically would I look after his child.
Walid's request has touched on some raw emotions.
But we did try for a child, you see. That's something that isn't going to happen now, so.
Michelle's chance to have children of her own has passed, so Walid's plea for help pulls heavily on her heartstrings.
Why would he be contacting me? He's got family. You know, we're not exactly close now after everything he did. So I just find it very, very odd.
Walid's messages have left Michelle in turmoil. Should she believe him? In Staffordshire, it's been less than a year since Diane's husband made an unexpected exit.
Because of the emotional effect it had on me, I lost 8 teeth at the back. I had alopecia, my hair started to fall out. It's just growing back again nicely now. And I also gained weight. I don't think I'll ever get over it. It is like a bereavement, the emotions that you feel, but it's not like a bereavement because the person that caused this pain, this suffering, is still out there.
Bruised and broken-hearted, Diane's en route to meet a therapist specialising in love and relationships.
I'm hoping it's going to be a little bit cathartic and help me to understand more about what's happened, really.
Donna Dawson wants to help Diane deal with some very painful emotions.
How did he make you feel loved?
That's a good question. It felt so natural. It felt like any courtship.
See, the thing about Western notion of love is that you start off with this kind of blank canvas upon which you project your needs and desires. The person becomes the blank canvas. Your needs and desires go on that. And what we tend to do with our rose-coloured spectacles is disregard anything that doesn't fit. Yes. And of course, when we have to then face the ugly truth, we go into a kind of bereavement for the relationship we thought we had. How do you feel now, looking back on it? What do you take from it?
I've got anger.
Sure.
I'm much better health-wise now because I was physically and mentally a mess. I'm guilty. I feel guilty. I feel sad.
You can't fully be blamed because you actually saw a progression there that you could believe in. You've got to hold your head up high and say, I went in that with best intentions.
A good person,
And you, my darling, you are going to be okay.
Yes.
You will be.
I feel quite cleansed to a degree and a lot more confident. I feel far more ready and prepared to move on now and to enjoy my life more, I think, and enjoy me more.
Patricia, who is chronically disabled, says she knew she loved Tunisian Monda from the first moment she saw him on holiday in 2011.
He was promising to be with me here, and he was going to treat me like a princess, buy me anything I wanted, to go on holidays. He was promising to get a car, take me anywhere I wanted to go. He was promising me everything.
Monda, then 26, proposed to Patricia, who was 60, on their first holiday together. After another 2 trips, in November 2012, Patricia married him in Tunisia.
On my wedding day, when he was reading the vows, I felt so happy. I was treated like a princess by my husband's parents. They were very, very good to me. It was a woman's dream to go to a different country and marry a younger man. It was wonderful. I was really, really happy.
But it wasn't just Patricia who was being treated. She's a pensioner and says the wedding cost her hundreds of pounds.
I had to pay for everything in Tunisia. Well, I paid for the wedding rings. I had to pay for a sheep that they slaughtered for the food for the wedding.
After the wedding, Patricia returned to the UK alone. She had to wait for Monda to get a visa to allow him to join her in the Midlands.
I didn't want to leave him because I fell that much in love with him.
8 months later, Monda secured a visitor's visa and travelled to the UK. But it was far from the emotional reunion Patricia had longed for.
He didn't have much communication with me at all. It was like as if once he'd married me, that was it. I felt like I was second best. Having Monda in the house was a nightmare. He'd have an argument with me if I spoke to my daughter on the phone. The marriage wasn't good with him living here.
But Monda's visa was running out, and Patricia refused to pay for another to allow him to stay in the UK for longer.
He kept getting on at me because I hadn't got £2,000 to go and get him a visa to stay in the country.
Less than a fortnight after arriving in the Midlands, Monda told Patricia he was leaving.
He said, I want to go to Portsmouth, stay with my friend. So he says, can you give me some money, some fare to get up there? I was gutted. I was well gutted.
Patricia's marriage was over, almost before it had begun, but Monda stayed in the UK for another year. In 2014, Patricia says the police told her he'd been arrested because his visa had expired and that he was in a detention centre. It was during this time Patricia received a message from Monda asking for money.
I don't have no penny, baby, to buy some stuff at myself. If you can send me £100. I don't have no one to help me in your country, just you, baby.
Patricia hasn't given Monda any more money. Instead, she wants him out of her life and out of the UK.
I just want him to get out of the country and move on with his life and don't have no contact with me ever again.
In Staffordshire, Diane's still dealing with the legacy of her marriage to Mobert. He arrived in the UK in 2011. It was at this time that Diane saw evidence making her think Mobert could be in a relationship with another woman whilst married to her.
Shortly after Mobert arrived in the UK, he asked me to open his email, and jumping out at me was an email that he'd sent to a lady in Holland. Of course, by this time we were married, and the email was written in English, and it was exactly the same as the emails that he used to send to me that were promises of love and devotion. They were tools, you know, they were grooming tools, if you like. So I challenged him about it and said, this is a love letter, you know, to this lady in Holland. And of course he denied it and said he didn't write it, it wasn't him, because that's what they do. And I had to take it on the chin, really, because by that time we were married, the commitment was made, he was here in the UK.
But Mobert was in contact with more than just one other woman.
He had lots of conversations with a Guinean lady who lived in Italy, and I questioned that frequently.
Diane also received an apology from a woman in Wales who said she was addicted to Mobert.
She rang me to tell me, I don't know why, she rang me to tell me she'd been having an affair with him.
Diane also believes the woman was in Guinea with Mobert when he spent 3 months there, just before he left her.
I'd helped her to arrange her trip and supported her with that, not knowing that she was having an affair with my husband whilst I was doing that. That was an awful, awful time for me. He had once said to me during the marriage, I want more children, and I'd said to him, well, how are you going to do that then? Because he knew I would never have any more children. And he just looked at me and didn't know what to say, because he knew he'd said something rather silly and foolish. And I said, how are you going to do that? And how are you going to have more babies? And he said, you think I'm going to leave this planet with no more babies? I said, well, yeah, okay, how are you going to do it? And I said, are you waiting for me to die?
Michelle's ex-husband is playing on her emotions. Out of the blue, he's told her his new wife is dead and has asked her to look after his baby.
Let's ring him.
Michelle wants to speak to Waleed directly to work out whether he's telling the truth or if he's got another agenda. He's agreed to be available at 5 o'clock.
Call failed us, Sam. Maybe he's cut me off. That was a bit like that in my marriage at times. You know, he let you down.
Without talking to Waleed, Michelle may never know if he's telling the truth.
That's hard for somebody like me who's so straightforward and, you know, probably a bit too honest sometimes.
In Staffordshire, Diane's meeting her friend David.
Hello, David.
Hi, Diane.
He's spent a lot of time in Gambia and has heard local men discussing how best to get into a relationship with Western women.
Used to sit around in huddles discussing this for hours. first of all, how do you find a woman? What age range do you go for? What are the easiest to attract? And then once you're in England, stories would come back about how you manipulate things in England and how you go about it. So they used to sit around for hours and discussing these, you know, processes that they'd go through.
Nearly 6 years after her first trip to the Gambia, Diane's reassessed her experience and what she thinks Mobear's motives were.
What he did was massive. He left his friends, his family, his culture, his music, his life, even the food that he ate. He left it all behind to be here in the UK, not as I thought to be with me, but to be in the UK, hopefully make a good amount of money to send home to build a house for his terribly impoverished family in a third world country, and to care for them and look after them. And that was his aim. I always thought that it was me, but looking back, it wasn't.
In Norfolk, Michelle is also counting the cost of her marriage to Waleed. He left a shocking surprise.
When he left, he said, don't open my bank statements and my credit card statements. So I smelt a dirty big rat straight off. So I opened them.
Waleed left debts of over £9,500.
Oh, it's just so much here. This one, £3,281.85. Oh, 6309, which was, I think, was connected with his phone contract. Then I got stuff to do with doorstep debt collection notices.
The bills are in his name, but Michelle is still affected.
It would appear that there's been a link made between my credit and his, so that's affected my credit rating. I can't do anything. I can't really even fix my place up or anything. I can't do anything now. He's sort of even messed that up for me. All my hopes and dreams have gone down the drain now at the moment.
Michelle isn't the only woman to suffer financial damage as a result of her failed marriage to a love rat. Diane has also lost valuable assets.
He lost a very expensive pen, he lost a laptop that I gave him at one point that disappeared, a video camera. Oh, it's endless the amount of things that he lost. Everything, really. And he would say that material things didn't mean anything to him, but...
American Jane says she spent thousands of dollars on the legal fees for her Nigerian husband's entry visa. But less than 8 weeks after Latif legally arrived in America, Jane made a startling discovery.
This is the actual email that he was sending out to hundreds of women.
Jane saw on her computer that Latif had sent an identical email to almost 100 different women.
Hello, everybody is talking about love, but how many of us knows what love really is? Love is not about finding the right person alone, but also creating a right relationship. My name is Latif. I just got to the USA from Africa and I live in Indiana, but I want to meet a serious woman who would like to have a strong and loving relationship. I'm married but not happy with her. I believe she is my lover, not my soulmate.
This discovery meant there was no going back.
I immediately contacted him to ask him what was going on, and he denied and stated that it was his brother. At this point, the believability was gone. There was nothing he was going to do that was going to convince me that he was not actually the one doing it, because it was right there in front of my face. It was very devastating. It was a case of, I really can't believe I fell for this the whole time, and that I fought family and friends for 2 years. And you find out that, no, he really was lying the whole time.
Jane made Latif leave and filed for divorce. But despite now being divorced, Latif can legally remain in the US for at least 10 years.
Angry. Oh, I was so angry that I'd spent this much time and this much money to bring him here, for him to have lied the whole time. Was just awful. Just an awful feeling.
Michelle's world was turned upside down when her Egyptian husband left just a month after receiving his British passport. Motivated by her sense of injustice, Michelle has started a campaign called Stop UK Marriage Fraud to help people who feel they were fooled into fake marriages.
I couldn't do that to anybody, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to basically raise awareness in the public domain and tell people what's going on.
Thank you for coming back today.
Today, Michelle's meeting barrister Paula Roan Adrian to discuss the current immigration laws, which Michelle thinks offer little protection.
Previously, the period of time to get a visa was 2 years in which the application could be made, and that's been extended to 5 years.
There doesn't seem to be much focus on actually what happens after they get British citizenship.
You can be in a relationship with someone for years, and who's to say that if they do go before the courts, that they can't persuade the court that the relationship naturally came to an end?
I actually went to my MP, who actually wrote to the Chief Constable. They sent 2 CID officers round. They discussed what happened with me. The fact he left a month after British citizenship, they actually took no action.
Oh, Michelle, I know that this is frustrating, but you've got to advise all your followers that they should do the same, because remember, indefinite leave to remain and citizenship can now be revoked due to the new law. Although I have to be honest with you and say that I don't know of any case in a situation like yours that has gone to court and succeeded.
It's frustrating news for Michelle, but she's determined to make a difference. Sadly, Michelle's is a story that is reflected around the world. Jane reported her ex-husband to the US immigration authorities, but believes he is still in America.
Oh, this is messy. I would pick a messy food, huh?
Despite this, Jane and her sons, Evan and Kyle, are returning to the normality of life without him.
I mean, we really tried to welcome him and give him a chance, but, I mean, you can't change who a person is just because you welcome them into your home.
Latif hasn't responded to any of the allegations.
Looking back, I wanted to believe that he was telling me the truth. I think I'm strong enough now to know better. Now I know what his personality really is and what he's really like. And no, I couldn't go through it again. I couldn't put my family through it again. I would have to tell anyone that's been through anything similar, hold your head up. It's not your fault, and you can't just hide in a hole afterwards. You have to fight back.
Like Jane, Patricia, who is disabled and living on a pension, is also trying to move on and forget all about her Tunisian husband.
All the time I was with Munda, he never once bought me a bunch of flowers, box of chocolates, nothing. I had to pay for everything. I'd rather him be back in Tunisia so he can move on with his life, and so can I.
Patricia wants a divorce, but having already spent thousands on holidays, flights for Monda and a wedding in Tunisia, she wants to know if she can afford it.
How are you? I'm fine, thank you.
She's visiting her local solicitor to see what a divorce might cost.
I wanted to know about a divorce. How would I go about it and how much, is it going to cost?
The way to get a divorce would be by way of petitioning in the county court. Court costs are generally £410 to do this. We do a fixed fee that starts from about £650 plus VAT.
I'm only on a pension.
It's not the result Patricia was hoping for, but there is some fresh news about Monda. Patricia now believes he is back in Tunisia.
He's at my life now. I can just get on with my own life now.
But even though Monda has left Patricia, she is still married to him, and without any way of paying for a divorce, she's stuck in her failed marriage. When asked to comment, Monda said his marriage to Patricia collapsed due to circumstances beyond his control, that he loved Patricia and that he didn't come to England for money. Diane reported Mobed to the police and believes he is now working in Italy. Despite her failed marriage, she has rekindled her love of African music. but has come to a damning conclusion on her decision to marry Maubert.
I made that decision based on what I believed to be the truth. I made that decision based on the fact that we were in love, based on the fact that we had a future together. And the foundations of that were all lies. So that sort of relinquishes me of some of the guilt and responsibility I in the past, have taken on board.
Maubert has been sent these allegations, but hasn't responded. We also contacted Michelle's ex-husband, Walid, who hasn't told us his side of the story. 5 months after Walid renewed contact with Michelle, she doesn't want to allow her husband back into her life. She may have longed for children, but she has decided Walid will have to look after his own baby.
I've got no sympathy for him whatsoever. I think he can rot in hell. But the little girl, I feel sorry for. If she's not got a little mum, you know, her mum, I feel sorry for the little girl. Not him, no. Nothing for him. No, he deserves all he gets.
Holiday resorts worldwide see thousands of British women letting their hair down, and some are seduced by eager local men.
The fact that he was younger, at the back of my mind it was, yeah, I could still pull.
It made me feel like, wow, I'm really something. I really felt very, very special.
Drawn in by the promise of a new exotic life, some even get married.
It was a very wonderful day, but the whole time it was in the back of my head. Am I doing the right thing?
But often these relationships come at a high cost.
I was headbutting walls, I was punching walls.
She just couldn't believe.
I was hysterical. He put his face in my face and he said to me, "You are my wife now. You do as you're told now."
And after spending thousands, some will wonder if they've been scammed.
I now believe that he'd actually been just stringing me along, getting as much as he could.
Somebody that I gave my heart to just basically threw it out to the curb.
The spice market in central Istanbul, the perfect place to pick up something Turkish.
Thank you very much. See you again. Bye.
54-year-old Tracy loves it here.
Oh, teşekkür ederim. I love this.
And she's used to the ways of this part of the world.
Are you from Germany or England?
England. Manchester.
Well, I want to get married.
You want to get married? What, and move to England?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sure you'll find them on the internet.
The men, they see an English face. They'll try anything.
Tracy says she was never in the market for love.
I hadn't had a relationship for years after my divorce. I wasn't interested in men. I was quite happy. I didn't want to meet a man.
But in 2009, while Tracy was online, a handsome 31-year-old from the southeast area of Turkey said hi.
He was friendly, and we just got chatting, and he seemed like a decent guy. He had a decent job. He was a dialysis technician. He was very attentive. He was very flattering.
His name was Bülent Doğan, and he turned on the charm. Tracy was seduced by the thought of a life full of Eastern promise.
Within weeks, he was telling me that he loved me. And to be honest, I had got very strong feelings for him too. It just felt right. And from there, I went out to meet him in Istanbul.
For Tracy, this was going to be a holiday to remember. After being single for 10 years, she was about to spend a whole holiday with the man of her dreams.
We're both like school kids. Basically, it was like our first date ever, I think. And I was shaking, he was shaking.
Tracy felt they clicked instantly.
He made me feel good, he made me feel alive again, to be honest. And the fact that he was younger, I think, at the back of my mind, it was, yeah, I could still pull.
Despite the excitement, Tracy found out Bülent's job back home wasn't quite as well paid as she had assumed, and he was skint.
He didn't have that much money to spend, and I ended up paying for most things there. And I think it came to the crunch on a night when we'd just had a couple of drinks in the room, and he suddenly said, "I need your help." He said, "I don't have the money to get back home." So on the final day of the holiday, we ended up going up to the airport and buying him a ticket to get back home. I funded that ticket and he never offered the money back.
Tracy was to return home in love, but out of pocket. Egypt, a country popular with tourists and lovers of ancient art and history. American artist Corinne came on holiday here 16 years ago.
I always thought of art as being a talent that was innate and God-given, and I needed to use it and develop it.
Whilst touring the country, Corinne also exhibited some of her art, and this attracted the attention of an Egyptian lawyer called Taher Hassan.
It made me feel like, wow, I'm really something. I really felt very, very special, and it was just the icing on the cake for me.
When the holiday was over, Corinne returned to the US and the pair stayed in touch. Corinne was married, but years later divorced, and in 2009, Taher made his move.
He seemed very persistent, wanting me to come to Egypt. He had proposed to me online and said, I'd like for you to marry me when you come to Egypt. And I thought, wow.
Corinne thought this was perfect timing. She booked a holiday to Egypt and promised to marry her Egyptian lawyer. Within days of her arriving, the wedding went ahead.
I think most women would dream to have a handsome man from an exotic place, be in love with them. My dreams were coming true, that my life was really going to be really fantastic at that point.
They call it sarma, and sometimes they put meat in it, sometimes they just put vegetables like I'm doing, because I've got vegetarian friends.
Tracy's holiday in Turkey with her new love Bülent was a great success, even though she had paid for everything. When she returned home, he asked Tracy to help him pay a phone bill.
He claimed he had a bill for a mobile phone he was being taken to court for. I actually said, how much is it for? It was a lot more than I expected. It was 1700 lira.
She gave Bülent money to cover the bill, but he didn't provide a receipt. It was just the first big bill Tracy says she was asked to pay. Adding up the hotels, flights and other gifts, Tracy says it was an expensive relationship.
Over the 3.5 years that I went out to see him, I will have spent in excess of £16,000. And it could have been a lot more had it gone on any longer.
The sky is cloudy today, so's my mood.
In Egypt in 2009, Corinne married her new love, Taher, but she had to go home to the US without him.
Taher's packing. We're both trying not to get emotional, but it's hard. It's hard for me to deal with this. I can't tell you how hard it is.
Getting a visa for Taher was not easy. It was going to take years.
There's my sweet husband, whom I cannot live without.
When Corinne returned home to the US, Taher lost his job as a lawyer, so she agreed to wire him money.
$250. $250 again in March the following year, another one in April for $250. At the end of April in 2010, $2,200. They go on and on and on.
Over the next 4 years, Taher could not get a visa or a job, so Corinne kept supporting him.
I love my wife, and I will miss her so much, but inside of me, I know and I believe we won't be apart so long. Our time will come so soon.
Eventually, the visa did arrive, and Taher made the trip to the US. Corinne did everything to make him feel at home, including putting his name on her bank account.
We made sure Taher got a social security card. You know, he had the cell phone. I put him on a bank account to make sure he had access to funds. I had invested so much of my life and my effort into accommodating him and making sure he was happy. I didn't want him to be uncomfortable after he arrived.
But Corinne had no idea what Taher was about to do. Holiday love rats promise a new and exotic life, but often these relationships leave the women in tears and seriously out of pocket. Bodrum in Turkey. In 2007, 48-year-old Elaine from Yorkshire was on her honeymoon with her 27-year-old Turkish husband, Adam Güler.
I thought, oh, this is my Mr. Right who I've been waiting for all my life. We went to Turkey for a month. We had 2 weeks holiday on our road and then 2 weeks travelling to visit relatives and his family. And I got introduced to everyone, aunties, uncles, granddads, nieces, nephews, brothers, sisters. So I had a great time. Apart from I couldn't speak Turkish, I didn't understand what they were all talking about.
It was a holiday Elaine will never forget. She thought her life had changed forever.
It was like a Prince Charming. It was opening doors and doing all the right things what some of us women like, being treated like a lady.
Elaine's love affair with Adam began in 2003, soon after he arrived in the UK.
I was on a girls' night out in the town in the city centre. Went to our usual nightclub where we go every Wednesday night. I saw him across the dance floor and I thought, oh, he looks a bit all right. I says to one of the girls, so she goes across and she tells him, comes over and we have a drink together. Said he was looking for an older woman and that was it. That started my relationship.
Adam was a dream come true.
I was attracted to him because he was dark hair, dark eyes. He had a nice body, he had an airy chest, which I like that. I was happy, I was over the moon.
But Adam had a confession to make. He was already married to an Englishwoman.
A few years before he met me, Adam met a lady on the holiday resort and they got married in Turkey. And then after a while, he got a visa to come over to the UK. And then they weren't together very long. They split up and he moved town. Just thought, well, they didn't stay together very long, so I asked him why they didn't stay together very long, and he said when he got into the country, as soon as the plane landed, she changed.
Elaine was in love. Adam got a divorce, but remained in the UK on his marriage visa. And in 2006, he asked Elaine to marry him.
I was so excited, I've never been married before, and I thought, oh, Mr. Right, you know, I'm happy with him. So we go ahead and booked it. It was only about 3 weeks later, after we'd spoke about it around the Christmas time, got married January the 7th.
But only a short time into her honeymoon, Elaine started to worry about married life with Adam.
When we went to Turkey, he said he was taking £10,000 to lend to his brother. And he also took his mum, I think it was 5,000, because she wanted a new toilet because she had the type that went into the floor and he wanted his mum to have a proper toilet, like an English toilet. He used to go get them contract mobile phones and I had an old second-hand phone. I just didn't understand it. In an English marriage, what's yours is mine and what's mine's yours, you know, it's ours. But not being married to a Turkish man, it's not. His money's his. And he knew that and he told me that.
In Warwickshire lives 52-year-old Anne-Marie.
Hello, can I get a glass of white wine, please?
On a night out in 2005, she met a man from the Gambia called Omar Sonko.
He's a very handsome, charismatic guy. Came along and started chatting to me, told me, stay with me and you'll never want for anything. I'll look after you, I'll treat you like a queen. He was, you know, he told me everything I wanted to hear, I suppose.
She wasn't so sure, but he was. Anne-Marie was 41 at the time, Omar was 21.
There was text after text after text, there was voicemails, there were missed calls from him constantly. He was absolutely adamant that he wanted to make a connection with me. So I thought, well, okay, why not, you know.
Anne-Marie gave in to Omar's charms, took a holiday from work, and their relationship began. He later confessed he needed somewhere to live.
He had said to me that he was terrible with money and he was struggling to pay his rent, and it just was a natural progression, if you like, that he would come and move in with me because then, you know, he would contribute
to help me, and that would also help him.
Within months of him moving in, the couple had booked their first holiday to the Gambia. Omar really wanted Anne-Marie to meet his family, and they decided to get married. Anne-Marie says Omar's current UK visa had run out, so he needed a new one to stay in the country.
He had come to the country on a student visa. He had not been able to finish the course. He needed to send money back home, otherwise people wouldn't be able to eat. And I kind of admired his strength for staying and doing what he's been doing to keep his family going.
Anne-Marie and Omar got married in March 2006.
I have the wedding photographs here, all the photographs that we took. It was a very wonderful day, very humbling and very lovely. But I still had doubts on my wedding day. The whole time it was in the back of my head. Am I doing the right thing?
Anne-Marie says it wasn't long before the fairy tale came to an end.
The day after we were married, there was an argument. He looked at me, his eyes were like bulging out of his head. He put his face in my face and he said to me, "You are my wife now. You do as you're told now." I was really frightened. And then I thought, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? I really think I've made a big mistake.
In 2009, Tracy from Manchester had started seeing Bülent Doğan, who lived in Turkey and made regular holiday trips to be with him. But she quickly found the relationship was costing her a small fortune. She continued seeing him for more than 3 years, but then enough was enough.
He didn't pay towards anything. The money that he took from me was £1,000 for a mobile phone bill, and then the final straw was when he asked for a £2,000 loan.
The loan was for a kebab shop. Bülent said he needed to pay for a licence to trade. Tracy wired the cash, but she never saw it again.
I just felt devastated. I had trusted this guy, I'd given him a chance, and all the time I now believe that he'd actually been just stringing me along, getting as much as he could.
3 years ago, Tracy filed a case to a Turkish court demanding Bülent pay her back, but the case was not taken any further because he didn't have any money.
He's had long enough to come up with some form of payment plan, and now I think I need to seek some more advice, see if there's anything that I can do to actually make him pay the money back.
Anne-Marie from Warwickshire had just got married in the Gambia to a man called Omar. It was a fairy tale wedding, but the very next day, she says, his mood changed. When the couple returned to the UK, she says her life was made intolerable.
I think he'd only been back a couple of weeks. He became very, very aggressive and started to become violent.
Anne-Marie says rows were common and often about money. He once smashed up the kitchen, and she recalls one particularly bad beating.
He held me to the floor with his hand and his foot, and then he took his belt off, and he had this thick studded belt, and he started to whip me over and over again on the top of my thigh. I was crying and screaming and begging him to stop, and he just kept whipping me over and over again. At one point during it, I did shout to him, you know, is this how you control your girlfriends? And he shouted yes back to me.
The violence was not the only thing Anne-Marie says she had to endure. She says Omar often demanded money, forcing her to take out loans and borrow on credit cards.
This is all of the short-term doorstep loans that I took out in the course of my relationship with Omar. He would ask me if he could borrow money to send back to his family, but I found out later that actually he would tell his family back in the Gambia he couldn't send them anything this month because he was giving it all to me, and he would tell me he couldn't give me anything towards the housekeeping because he needed to send it all to the Gambia. Life became awful, to be honest. It was the spiralling debts,
the constant violence, never had any money, was always having to say no to the kids when they wanted something. It was just horrible.
The relationship lasted 5 years and then Omar left. Anne-Marie took a non-molestation order out against him to stop him returning. She now wonders if she can track him down to help pay off the debts she was left with.
I was with this man for a long time, and I now have £15,000 worth of debts, which I just can't pay. What I intend to do is to see if there's some way I can find out where he is, and see if I can get any help, any money from him towards these debts, which technically are half of his.
Back in Washington, Corinne had spent years sending thousands of dollars to support her jobless Egyptian husband, Taher Hassan, while they waited for his American visa to arrive. He finally got his visa and in 2014 flew to the US, and everything seemed perfect.
Taher had kissed me and said, I just need you to know you're very, very beautiful. I'm going to love you forever and take care of you.
But just 31 days after he arrived, Corinne became concerned when she got a bizarre message from Taher.
I received a text from him saying he was going to New York to sign the papers. He was not alone. I didn't understand what that meant. I tried phoning him and texting him and got no response.
Corinne went home and Taher wasn't there. Concerned about what was happening, she contacted her bank, who confirmed suspicious activity on their joint account.
He went to the bank where we had a joint account, trying to withdraw as much money as he could. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 withdrawals in the amount of $200, just a few minutes apart with each withdrawal. $696 for a one-way airline ticket to Cairo. When I had spoken to the bank officers, they had told me he had tried to make many other withdrawals.
24 hours later, Corinne says she received a devastating email from Taher. He had returned to Egypt and asked that she never contact him again.
I was suicidal. I thought nobody's ever going to love me ever again. I'm going to be alone the rest of my life. Somebody that I gave my heart, my life to, just basically threw it out to the curb.
Tracy from Manchester ended her relationship with her Turkish ex when she says he failed to pay back a £2,000 business loan. She's come to London to meet Action Fraud, part of the City of London Police, who recently issued warnings over so-called romance scams.
I've never seen a penny, and I'd like to know if there's any way that he can be forced to pay any of the money that he's owing. So I just thought maybe if I speak to Action Fraud, they could give me some idea of what I could do.
The deputy head of Action Fraud is keen to meet Tracy as part of their ongoing intelligence gathering.
Welcome, Tracy. You've reported this to us as a romance fraud. So you said right from the outset you thought there was something wrong.
Yeah.
And yet
I felt
you've still
sucked in.
gone through. So could you sort of explain the sort of process, if you like?
I can't explain, but my story is the same as many, many more. I run a Facebook group and there's so many ladies telling the same story, but they have actually met the guys in person first down at the beach or some seaside place or even inland, and they fall into exactly the same trap. I thought I was pretty astute before all this.
Yeah.
I thought I was quite intelligent, but for some reason, they take over.
So it's the emotional attachments that are making you be irrational, do things.
Irrational.
It was irrational.
It was irrational. I'll openly say I was stupid. I was irrational. I wasn't thinking. Everybody thinks the guys are different.
Tracy's story may be common, but she is determined to pursue Bülent Doğan for the £2,000 she says she lent him.
So as far as the money that I'm owed now, is there anything you could suggest that I could do now?
You must pursue that through the Turkish authorities.
Okay, thank you.
she's admitted that she thought from the outset that there was something wrong and the alarm bells were ringing, but she was in love, and the rational aspects that you would do, the due diligence you would usually do, go out of the window.
Tracy has decided to go back to Turkey to get legal advice about how to get Bülent to pay up.
I still feel very, very motivated now to go out and seek further advice, just to see what I can do, just to prove a point, because people like this should not be allowed to get away with it.
In Warwickshire, Anne-Marie eventually split up with her Gambian husband, Omar Sonko, after suffering domestic violence and years of financial turmoil. She's on her way to see her grown-up son Joe and daughter Steph from a previous marriage. They all lived together when Omar was on the scene.
We were just permanently broke, and they would ask for things. You know, they couldn't go on the expensive school trips like their friends. They couldn't have fashionable clothes. You know, they had to make do with whatever I could afford. Hiya.
Right.
Yeah. Hello. How's the little beautiful?
Anne-Marie's daughter has just had a baby and has a new life. But she clearly remembers the financial chaos in her own childhood.
A lot of the time, Mum would stress about money, and then as he was on the scene longer, Mum seemed to become worse and worse off, really.
Hello, beautiful.
We weren't sort of able to have anything new, school uniform and stuff. A lot of stuff would come second-hand for us because she just simply couldn't afford it.
Come on, I've seen pictures of you with a big smile on your face.
Her son Joe was only 10 when Omar and his mum married. He remembers everything happening very quickly.
Well, I was quite young, so I didn't really know an awful lot about relationships, but it definitely did feel quite quick.
She's gripping hold of my thumb.
He was only casually in my life, and then all of a sudden, going from just seeing him a couple of times a week, it would be now all of a sudden he's there and he's staying kind of thing.
Right, okay. I'm going now, yeah? Okay. Yeah, see you soon, yeah? See you later.
Anne-Marie has over £14,000 of loans she says she was persuaded to take out by her Gambian husband. She now wants to find him to see if he will help pay off the debts. 56-year-old Elaine married Turkish Adam Güler 8 years ago. They lived together for 3 years, and she says life before the wedding was good. But she says married life didn't turn out quite how she'd hoped. He worked nights at a pizza delivery shop, and she stayed at home.
The quality of the married life, I think, was bad. It was like two separate people, not a marriage. He was going out making money. He didn't buy me any clothes. I didn't get flowers. I didn't get birthday cards. I didn't get presents. Nothing.
Elaine says they continued married life living as strangers. That was until his British passport arrived in the post.
His passport came on the Friday, and on the Sunday he gave me £60 and he says, "There's your £60 bed and breakfast," and he smirked. It wasn't a smile, it was a smirk. And then he said, "I can start to be myself now, because for 7 years I haven't been able to be myself."
On that Monday morning, Elaine was out and called Adam, but he refused to say where he was.
Do you want a cup of tea, Elaine?
Yes.
One sugar?
One sugar, please.
She became suspicious and called her neighbour Sharon.
Elaine phoned me up and she went, "Sharon, is my car outside the front?" And I went, "Oh yeah, your car's here." She went, "Is Adam there?" And I was like, "I can't see him." I went, "Oh, hang on a second, he's just coming out now." I said, "He's loading his car up with bin bags and it looks like he's got clothes, Elaine." So she went, "He's leaving." So she's like, "Try and stop him." We're like, "How am I going to stop him, Elaine? Let down his tyres." I went, "I can't let down his tyres. I'll get done for bloody criminal damage." So and I was sat there, he loaded up his car and he went out, and literally, it was a couple of minutes, but it wasn't even 5 minutes, Elaine comes round. She went into the house and it looked like her house had been robbed. And I was just like, oh my God.
Adam had done a runner. 3 days after receiving his British passport, he was gone. Elaine didn't take it well.
I was headbutting walls,
She
I was
headbutted the
punching
wall,
walls.
she just couldn't believe.
I was hysterical. I was in shock, total shock. But I really loved him, you see, 110%.
She did.
It was terrible, terrible.
Sharon consoled her neighbour, but she wasn't surprised by what had happened.
I mean, I've been to Turkey and I've had them come up to me and chat me up with my husband sat next to me. You know, and they've offered my husband money as well. We'll pay for your wife. And I looked at him and went, don't you dare, I'll kill you. But they do offer you money for your wives when you're abroad.
I've heard that before.
Dale's been offered 100 grand for me. I nearly crapped my pants because he sat and thought about it.
Elaine was never to hear from Adam again. He filed for divorce, but he still lives in the UK.
I've been left absolutely devastated and ill for the last nearly 5 years now. Miserable, I don't socialise. People's commenting on the way I am and telling me to cheer up. I'm on antidepressants the last few years. I've doubled them up to try to get out this rut I'm in, but it's not so easy. I just can't seem to move on.
Three and a half thousand miles away, Tracy has arrived in Istanbul to seek legal advice to try and get back £2,000 she says she lent her ex, Bülent. She also claims that while she was on her last ever holiday with him, she discovered he was cheating.
I was tidying the room up and I decided to put something in his suitcase. There's no clothes in the suitcase, hardly. What there was winter clothes stuffed in a little bag of mine. I thought, this isn't right. So yeah, I had a look in his case. And that was when I found boarding passes from Helsinki to Oslo. I also found a letter from another woman saying, Bülent, you are impossible. I will be at the airport tomorrow, something like you'd better be there. I waited for him to come back to the room. I actually said to him, why didn't you tell me you've got another woman? There is no other woman. You're paranoid. And then I went to show him the boarding passes. I went to put my hand on the case. He grabbed my arm so hard. I had bruises down my arm for the rest of the holiday. He still denied it. I was just devastated because I didn't believe he'd do that. Yes, he flirts, but I really didn't believe he'd go and do something like that, but he did. It was then that I thought, hang on, have I been scammed?
Later, Tracy will meet a Turkish lawyer. She's prepared to go all the way to get back the money she says she's owed. Back in the UK, and Anne-Marie is also on a mission. She wants to find her Gambian husband, who she says encouraged her to take out thousands of pounds of debt. He's disappeared, but she thinks he should help pay off the loans.
I found a website who will trace a debtor on your behalf. Looks like a good site. It's a no fine, no fee.
For Anne-Marie, ridding herself of the debts is the start of getting her life back together.
Before I met Omar, my credit rating was good. My rating now, well, credit card £248, long-term loan £5,700, another credit card £2,500, just shy of £14,500. At the rate that I'm paying back at the moment because of what I need for day-to-day living, it's going to take 17 years to clear this little lot up. It's ridiculous.
For Anne-Marie, crippling debts are not the only indignity she suffered at the hands of Omar. She believes he was also having an affair.
I caught sight of an email, which I do now have, which is a pretty young lady, much younger than me, sending a photograph of herself via her mobile phone to my husband. And then a few months later, I had a subsequent phone call from the same lady.
Anne-Marie and Omar soon separated. He's not allowed to go near the house, and she's not seen nor heard from him for years.
Unless I can actually find out where he is, then I can't recover any of it. I mean, I can't even divorce him unless I know where he is, because I can't serve any papers on him. So I think this is the way ahead.
Tracy also has a plan. She's in Istanbul to meet a lawyer to try to get back the money she says she lent her ex, Bülent.
But when I asked Bülent why he'd scammed me, the first thing he said, and it stuck in my head, it was easy. I want settlement. I've not been able to say anything face-to-face to him because he didn't have the guts. And if I hadn't found the other woman's details within his suitcase, I would have still been none the wiser.
This is the first time Tracy has seen a translated statement from Bülent, who says he thought the money was a gift, not a loan.
According to this, I provided £2,000 sterling for purposes of providing support and assistance to him. I gave him the money for assistance only. He didn't deceive me or betray me in any way. The anger's back again. I can't wait to see this lawyer. I just hope they can do something about it.
In Warwickshire, Anne-Marie finally has some good news.
In the last couple of weeks, I have had some success finding my ex-partner, so I can have papers served on him, which I couldn't before, so that's really, really positive.
Anne-Marie can now apply for a divorce, but first she wants to concentrate on ridding herself of the debts she says she was forced to take out by her Gambian husband.
Hello, Anne-Marie.
Hello, Paul.
Paul Fisher has over 30 years' experience in the debt industry and hopes to help.
So, Anne-Marie, what is it you want to try and to achieve now over the next 2 or 3 years?
Where I want to go from here is I really want to, I'd like to get rid of these debts. I want to be, you know, in a place where I was before all of this, you know, mayhem started.
As the loans were taken out in Anne-Marie's name, she is liable. But Paul believes due to her circumstances, the debts could still be written off.
Certainly physical and or psychological coercion is duress. If it could be proved that you took out these loans under duress, the financial institutions involved, I think you would find would be very supportive in writing off your debt.
That's really, really, really good to know.
Anne-Marie faces 17 years of paying back these loans and is therefore keen to get all the help she can.
I think I can put my hands on enough evidence to prove that I was coerced into several of these loans, and those loans caused me, you know, my finances to spiral out of control. I think that's really something that I want to look into.
All right, our next comic's very funny. Put your hands together for Corinne Kay.
Back in Washington, Corinne feels she's ready to move on. Her ex-husband is now back in Egypt and she's thousands of dollars out of pocket.
Has anybody ever embellished on a truth here before?
But tonight she's trying a new way to pay off her debts.
Just anything to make yourself look better, you know, for those dating websites, you know, because I'm on one that says, you know, it's, there's a lot of them out there. I belong to the, I don't think I have enough time and I'm running out website.
Taha has been sent the allegations made in this programme, but hasn't responded. Corinne feels hopeful about the future.
In the last several years, I've had a lot of difficulties thrown my way, but at my age, at 56, I have a lot of living to do. I'm going to be okay.
In Istanbul, Tracy has already filed a case against her ex, but as he said he didn't have any money, her solicitor didn't take it any further.
Hello. Hi.
3 years on, Tracy feels differently, and local lawyer Sarah thinks she could file a criminal case.
If you could go again to the prosecutor to file a criminal case. I don't know the situation in Elazığ, but go directly to a police station and give your statement. Explain you have some evidences, including the receipt of your transfer to his bank account.
Yes. Can you, in a Turkish court, use texts, Facebook, email, MSN messages, things like that. Can that be used in court?
Yes.
I've got even more evidence.
In a criminal suit, you have more power. It's a better option to file this criminal suit.
Okay.
Filing a new criminal case could mean Tracy gets her money back, but it could also cost thousands in legal fees.
It's not a very cheap process for Tracy to file a criminal lawsuit, but it's Tracy's decision to find out if this would be cost-effective or not.
People are probably saying, oh, why don't you let it go? This is principle. It's nothing to do with money, it's nothing to do with finances. This is actually principle.
Anne-Marie also hopes that one day soon she'll become debt-free and move on with her life.
I entered into my relationship completely besotted in love, you know, it was a dream. But we live and learn, and I would like to think that I'm coming out of the other end of it, you know, much stronger, you know, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger, onwards and upwards from here on in.
Omar admits he was in the UK illegally when they met, but says it was Anne-Marie's idea for them to get married in the Gambia. He denies ever coercing her into taking out loans. Omar admits their relationship was violent, but says he didn't whip her with a studded belt. He says he had to take a harassment order out against her after they split up. Omar also agrees he had a brief relationship with another girl, but says he had already separated from Anne-Marie at that point. He says she was also unfaithful during their marriage. Omar claims to have divorced Anne-Marie in the Gambia in 2012. In Yorkshire, all Elaine can do is reflect on her failed marriage to a Turkish man 20 years younger. She feels cheated.
I regret this 110% what's happened to me, and it's so easy to fall into it because I'm such a trustworthy, believing person. And he caught me with my guard down at the time. And he come across as such a lovely person, and that's what I needed in my life at the time. And obviously it was a big mistake.
Adam says that he used to give Elaine between £100 and £250 per week, and the money he gave to his brother was repaying a business loan. He gave his mother £500, not £5,000. Adam says married life had deteriorated over the years, so he decided to leave at a time when Elaine was out of the house. Adam says he didn't regard Elaine's home as a B&B and didn't tell her he had been unable to be himself for the previous 7 years. Tracy is at the end of her trip in Istanbul. She's determined to continue her legal battle to get back money from her ex.
I think my personality has been changed by Bülent. Still, I'm very, very cautious, but I think there's no harm in being cautious.
Bülent disputes Tracy's version of events, in particular that he has to pay Tracy back the money she gave him. He also said he tried to break up with Tracy many times, but she wouldn't let him. Bülent says he is now happily married and wishes to be left alone. And Tracy is also in another relationship.
I've met somebody new. Aziz is totally different to Bülent. He can't do enough for me. He's absolutely besotted with me. He's never asked me for money, he's never asked me for anything. He's actually given me. To say that he doesn't have a lot, he would give me his last penny, he would do anything for me. Hello, Gidog.
Aziz is also Turkish, and talk of marriage is already on the cards.
I like Tracy because she's so honest, and she's a good woman. I will marry it, maybe. Tracy, if you want. We will see what happens.
The next step is going out to meet his family in Malatya. I'll take it from there. You live once, and you take risks, and I'm taking another risk on Aziz, but I'm going in with my eyes open this time.